Carl Jung, one of the most influential minds in psychology, proposed a theory that goes beyond conscious behaviors. He invited us to confront what lies hidden in the unconscious. Among his most haunting contributions is the concept of the anima feminine archetype that lives in the psyche of every man. At first glance, it may seem poetic. A man carries within him an image of womanhood, a soulful reflection of tenderness, sensitivity, or longing. But Jung warned, if left unexamined, this internal woman can become not a muse, but a phantom, a shadowy manipulator of emotion, desire, and fantasy. Let's slow down here. Picture a man falling in love not with a woman herself, but with what she awakens in him. Her laugh reminds him of childhood comfort. Her mystery mirrors his own loneliness. Her beauty resurrects something ancient and instinctive. He believes he's in love with her, but what he's really in love with is the projection of his inner anima. And that projection is not real. It's a collage made of memory, trauma, hope, and fantasy. Jung saw this anima as multilayered. At its highest form, she represents spiritual wisdom and connection to the inner world. But, in its earlier, darker stages, the anima is seductive, manipulative, and irrational. She whispers, not to guide, but to possess. She tempts the man to fall in love with images, feminine ideals, fantasies, or illusions rather than with actual women. Many men walk through life unable to tell the difference. They chase women who mirror their inner void. They fall for the inaccessible, the chaotic, the emotionally unstable because unconsciously, that's what their own inner feminine looks like. A man raised by a cold mother may crave warmth in women, but ironically, he may be most drawn to emotionally distant partners. Why? Because his inner anima has merged with rejection, and rejection feels like home. This is not simply tragic, it's dangerous. For when a man fails to confront his anima, she acts through him. She chooses for him. He doesn't love. He is possessed by the idea of love. He doesn't desire. He is compelled by something he can't name. He begins to interpret signs that aren't there, assigning spiritual meaning to every glance, every touch, every moment of silence. In truth, he is not with the woman in front of him. He is dancing with a ghost from within. This is how relationships turn toxic. When a man projects his unconscious anima onto a woman, he no longer sees her, he sees his story of her. And when she inevitably fails to uphold this illusion, he may feel betrayed, abandoned, or enraged. Not because she changed, but because the illusion shattered. Now imagine how this plays out across a lifetime. A man goes from woman to woman, constantly searching for the right one, the soulmate, the twin flame. But what if the soulmate he's chasing isn't out there? What if she's buried within his unconscious? And, until he turns inward, no real connection will ever satisfy. Jung didn't preach abstinence or fear of women, far from it. He respected the feminine principle as essential to a man's wholeness. But he also understood how dangerous it is when that principle is misunderstood. The anima is not just a lovely muse or divine guide. In its dark form, it is chaos disguised as beauty. And many men fall, not because of the women they meet, but because of the parts of themselves they never dared to meet. If you've ever loved someone who wasn't truly there for you, if you've ever obsessed over someone who barely knew you, if you've ever lost yourself in fantasies that felt more vivid than life itself, then perhaps it wasn't love you were chasing. Perhaps it was your own anima, unintegrated and crying out to be known. So what does a man do? He begins by withdrawing the projections, by asking, what does this woman represent to me? Why? What part of me does she awaken or mirror? These are not easy questions. They demand honesty and deep thought. But through this inquiry, the anima becomes conscious. She stops acting in the shadows. She becomes a source of creativity and emotional depth, no longer a puppeteer behind the curtain. Jung once said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. And nowhere is this more true than in matters of love. So the next time you find yourself intoxicated by a woman's presence, don't just look at her. Look inward. Ask what inside you has awakened. Is it love, or is it longing shaped by wounds? Is it connection or projection? Because the truth is, some women you meet are not women at all, not in the psychological sense. They are vessels, mirrors, archetypes, and when a man doesn't recognize that, he risks confusing desire with destiny, and fantasy with truth. That is the dark truth. Carl Jung believed every man must face not about women, but about his own mind. Carl Jung believed that relationships were more than simple attractions. They were mirrors, sometimes clear, sometimes warped, through which we encounter parts of ourselves we cannot see alone. When a man meets a woman who captivates him in a way that feels beyond reason, who seems to pierce straight through to the center of his soul, he is not simply meeting her. He is meeting something far older, deeper, and more personal. The parts of himself that he has buried, denied, or forgotten. Jung called this the confrontation with a shadow. In mythology, the shadow often wears a beautiful face. She arrives not as a warning, but as an invitation. She may appear seductive, mysterious, emotionally intense. She might say things that feel like destiny. Her presence may pull a man into a trance-like obsession. But what he doesn't see, what he can't yet see, is that she is activating his deepest unresolved wounds. This is where the anima and the shadow begin to merge. Some women, Jung noted, unknowingly or knowingly, carry the dark anima, that aspect of the feminine that doesn't soothe but disturbs. She awakens chaos, confusion, emotional volatility. She is not here to complete the man, but to test him, to reveal whether he knows himself or whether he's still a prisoner of his inner child. Let's pause here. Think about the woman who throws you off balance. The one you can't stop thinking about, even though the relationship is clearly unhealthy. The one who triggers your jealousy, your possessiveness, your shame. The one who can say a single sentence that sends you into a spiral of self. That woman may not be toxic in the simplistic way we often say today. She may be something far more ancient. A dark mirror of your unconscious self. In Jungian thought, the psyche seeks wholeness but not peace. It wants you to grow, not to feel comfortable. So, it will draw toward you the people who activate your deepest work. That's why some women seem to haunt a man long after the relationship ends. It's not her he's haunted by. It's what she showed him about himself, his fears, his weaknesses, his forgotten desires. And here's the twist. The woman may not be doing anything consciously. She might just be living her life. But because the man has not integrated his shadow, he reads her every action as something more. He feels seen and exposed around her. He feels both attracted and terrified. That's because she represents the very parts of him he has refused to face. In this way, she becomes more than a person. She becomes a mirror the ego wants to smash but the soul knows it must look into. There is a particular kind of woman, Jung suggested, who embodies this dark energy with precision. She is not evil. She is not cruel. But she carries an energy that draws out whatever is unhealed in the men around her. Often, these women are also deeply intuitive, emotionally intense, or psychologically complex. They are not easy to love, not because they lack worth, but because they do not allow a man to remain asleep. In the unconscious male psyche, such a woman can become the femme fatale, a dangerous, mesmerizing figure who lures the man away from his path. But in truth, she may be the soul's teacher in disguise. Her chaos reflects his chaos. Her emotional fire mirrors his repressed passions. Her instability shows his ungrounded heart. If he can stop blaming her and start reflecting on what he sees, he begins the alchemical process of inner transformation. But most men don't do this. Most men either chase her obsessively or run from her completely. They label her crazy, draining, manipulative. They tell themselves they need peace. But what they really fear is the depth she brings. Because to be with her means to confront the deepest truths of who they are, and most people are not ready to do that. The tragedy here is that many of these women are left misunderstood, vilified, or abandoned, because they do not conform to the fantasy ideal. They don't play the role of the nurturing mother or passive lover. Instead, they act as fire burning through illusion, not out of malice, but as a natural consequence of their energy. Jung did not believe that men should avoid such women. Instead, he believed they should learn from them. Not to possess, not to control, but to integrate. To ask, what part of me is being reflected back right now? What do I fear in her? What do I envy in her? What do I judge in her that I have not owned in myself? These are not questions of romance. These are questions of initiation. And the woman who brings them to the surface is not just a partner. She is a threshold between the known and the unknown. In this way, not every woman a man meets is meant to be loved in the traditional sense. Some are meant to be honored for the lessons they bring. Some are meant to shake him awake. Some are meant to introduce him to his shadow, not to wound him, but to show him where he is already wounded. This is what Jung meant when he said, the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. So if you've met a woman who destabilized your world, who confused your sense of self, who forced you to look at parts of yourself, you'd rather not sit and ask what's wrong with her. Ask what part of you she's trying to illuminate. That's the real work. And that's the real gift. Because the woman as a dark mirror is not the enemy. She is the invitation. And whether you accept it or not, will shape the kind of man you become. When lust masks the face of love, there is a silence that follows lust, an emptiness that no orgasm can fill, no passion can soothe. It arrives in the stillness after the chase, after the conquest, when the fire that once seemed sacred fades into ordinary light. And in that moment, many men realize what they called love was never love at all. It was longing. It was hunger. It was the anama in disguise. Carl Jung warned us that the unconscious mind does not distinguish between fantasy and reality. When a man projects his unintegrated anima onto a woman, he doesn't see her as she is, he sees her as he needs her to be. And when the force of libido of erotic energy adds fuel to this projection, he becomes not a lover, but a worshipper, not of the woman herself, but of the image she represents. This is where lust becomes dangerous, not because it is immoral, but because it is deceptive. It makes a man believe that his desire for possession is love, that his obsession is death, that his sexual attraction is evidence of spiritual connection. But the truth is far more sobering. Lust, when untethered from consciousness, is the ego trying to fill its own void with another body. Jung believed that sexuality was sacred, but he also knew that it was volatile. In the absence of integration, it becomes a vehicle for a man can spend years chasing sexual highs, confusing them for intimacy. He can sleep beside a woman every night and still never truly know her. He can make love to her body while remaining utterly untouched in his soul. Why? Because he is not present. He is not grounded. He is lost in projection, in fantasy, in the drama of his own unmet needs. And she, unknowingly, becomes the screen on which he plays the movie of his unconscious. Think of how many relationships begin with fire, with intensity, with phrases like "we have this insane connection," or "I've never felt this way before." These feelings are real, but they are not always about the other person. Often, they are echoes from the past, a mother wound, a need for validation, a craving for escape. In these moments, lust becomes a mask. It gives the illusion of fusion to bodies merging, two souls colliding. But if you look closely, there is often a strange hollowness beneath it all, because one or both partners are not seeing each other. They are seeing their own reflection. This is why Jung emphasized the importance of inner work before intimacy, because without it, a man will love with his wounds. He will desire from his brokenness. He will mistake possession for closeness, and the woman he lusts after, she will become either his savior or his victim. Now, this does not mean that lust is evil. On the contrary, sexual energy is powerful, creative, even transformative, but only when it is conscious, only when it is not used to avoid, to numb, or to distract. Jung spoke often of the danger of repression, but he was just as concerned about indulgence without awareness. So, what does it mean for a man to love with awareness? It means he no longer needs the woman to complete him. He desires her, yes, but not from emptiness. He is drawn to her, yes, but not as a drug, not as a fix, not as a fantasy. He sees her as she is, flawed, complex, real, and he sees himself as he is, no longer a boy searching for his mother in a lover's arms, but a man who has befriended his own loneliness. In this light, lust can become something else entirely. It can become reverence. It can become play. It can become a meeting between two whole beings, each seeing the other not as an answer, but as a companion on the journey. But to get there, a man must first face the illusion. He must look at the women he has chosen and ask, was it really her I loved, or was it the way she made me forget myself? He must examine his patterns, the thrill-seeking, the avoidance, the collapse after the high, and most painfully of all he must admit, when he has used love as a disguise for lust. Jung believed that the path to wholeness was not linear. It was circular, spiral, filled with regressions and returns. So if you find yourself trapped in a cycle of intense beginnings and hollow endings, of passion followed by regret, know this: it is not because you are broken. It is because something inside you still believes that ecstasy will heal the ache. But ecstasy is not healing. Presence is. And presence requires courage, the courage to stay, to feel, to see clearly. This is what separates lust from love. Not the intensity of the feeling, but the clarity behind it. Lust wants to possess. Love wants to understand. Lust seeks escape. Love invites reflection. Lust ends in silence. Love begins in stillness. So when you find yourself falling, ask, am I falling for her, Or am I falling for what I want her to mean? Is this desire or is this awakening? Am I choosing her or am I trying to fix something in me? Because until a man can answer these questions, he will mistake many things for love. He will say, I miss her, when what he really misses is the way she distracted him from his pain. He will say she was the one, when what he really means is she fit the fantasy. He will say, I was in love, when what he really felt was the rush of being seen. Jung said that man's task is to become conscious of the contents that press upward from the unconscious. And nowhere is this more urgent than in how we love. Until we see through the mask of lust, we will keep dancing with illusions. We will keep calling it fate. We will keep losing ourselves in others, hoping to find a self we've never met. But true love begins only when the mask falls, when lust gives way to truth, and when the soul is finally ready to stop chasing and start seeing, awakening from the dream of the feminine unconscious. The dream of woman is ancient. In the male psyche, she appears not just as a lover or companion but as mystery, as muse, as salvation. For thousands of years, men have painted her in their minds, pure yet erotic, tender yet wild, a goddess who sees them, understands them, and delivers them from their confusion. Carl Jung warned that, until a man wakes up from this dream, he cannot truly love a woman, because he is not loving her, he is loving his image of her, and that image, rooted in the unconscious, is shaped more by longing than by truth. This image is the anima, the internal feminine. She is born not from reality, but from memory, fantasy, projection. She often carries the face of the mother, the emotion of early wounds, the heat of early desires. She is powerful, and when a man has not integrated her, she becomes the lens through which he sees every woman he meets. This is why a man may be drawn again and again to the same type, not a type of personality but a type of energy. It is why he may feel both overwhelmed and addicted to a woman who seems to hold some impossible significance. He says, I've never felt this way before, but what he's really saying is, I've met a woman who reflects the unconscious feminine in me that I have not yet made conscious. Until that work is done, until the man awakens, he is not free. He is a puppet of his own projections. Jung emphasized that the anima, when not integrated, becomes both seductress and saboteur. She can lead a man into divine inspiration. She can speak to him in dreams, pulling him toward his art, his creativity, his soul. Or she can trap him in endless romantic fantasies, leaving him disillusioned, confused, and heartbroken. The difference lies not in her, but in him, in how conscious he is of what she represents. To awaken from the dream of the feminine is not to abandon love, it is to purify it. It is to see the woman before you not as a symbol, not as a mirror, not as a savior but as a human being, complex, contradictory, and sovereign. This awakening often begins in heartbreak, the shattering of an illusion, the death of a fantasy, the painful realization that what you thought was divine was, in fact, deeply human. But this is not the end, it is the beginning, because only in the rubble of projection can real love be built. A man who has done this work does not need the woman to carry his soul. He does not chase chaos. He does not worship pain. He does not confuse desire with destiny. He meets her as she is, and in that meeting, something new becomes possible. This man is no longer looking to be mothered, or saved, or endlessly desired. He is not ruled by the unconscious tides of longing. He does not fear the woman's power, nor does he idealize her beauty. He sees clearly. And in this clarity, there is space for connection, for respect, for truth. This is where real love begins, not in the heat of projection, not in the seduction of dreams, but in the grounded presence of two whole people, choosing each other again and again, not because they complete each other, but because they recognize each other. And that recognition is not always romantic. Sometimes it is raw, sometimes it is uncomfortable, sometimes it means walking away. But whatever shape it takes, it is real. In Jungian thought, wholeness requires that we integrate both the masculine and the feminine within. For men, this means confronting the anima, seeing her, understanding her, no longer needing to find her in every lover's face. It means taking back the power once projected onto women, and holding it in the self. When this happens, a man becomes sovereign. He is no longer chasing ghosts, no longer at the mercy of lust, no longer trying to heal through romance what can only be healed through reflection. He becomes capable of intimacy, not just physical, but emotional, spiritual, existential, because he is no longer seeking in others what he has refused to give himself. In this state, he can love without clinging, desire without needing, offer without demanding, He can witness the beauty of a woman without turning her into an idol or a threat. And this, ultimately, is what Jung asked of us: to wake up, to see, to love consciously, not because it's easier, but because it's real. Because until a man sees the feminine in himself, he will never truly see the woman before him. And until he wakes from the dream, he will remain asleep no matter how wide his eyes are open. So, the question is not, how do I find the perfect woman? It is, how do I face the anima within me? Not, how can I make her love me? But, what part of me still believes I need her to prove my worth? Not, how do I hold on to her? But, can I hold on to myself, even in love? Because when a man can do that, when he stops dreaming and starts seeing, then the feminine is no longer a mystery to fear or chase. She is a presence to honor, a soul to meet, a partner to walk with, not to fill a hole, but to light a path, together,